right, welcome back to the Four Horsemen on the Intermat Wrestling Podcast. We now have everything done except for the big dance. We've got
Well,
conferences.
we still have things to figure out before that
Oh, we
happens.
still have we still have to make our picks. That'll come next week. However, and I mean, yeah, I guess there probably is still a couple more things that need to be figured out, which we'll get into. But we've got conference results, we've got NCAA brackets, we've got at-large bids, we've got all of it. Um, Still yet to be determined is the 174-pound bracket what it's going to look like.
Who's going to be in it?
Who's going to be in it? So, I mean, before we even dive into the conference results and our respective conferences, let's talk about that. Let's talk about Brennan, how any of this happened, um, and what your guys' thoughts are on the whole situation. Kevin, I'm gonna let you start because I have a thought, but I want to hear what you guys think first. So, Kevin, I'm gonna let you start.
It's funny enough, all I was thinking in the moment was about Office Space, where they realized that the guy with the red stapler I actually have one here.
Is it a
There we
swing
go.
line?
It is a swing line. It's a red
Uh,
swing line. Which, fun fact, they didn't actually make red swing lines. They just painted a regular swing line red for the movie, and now it's their number one selling stapler.
yeah, the more you know.
There you go. Anyway, don't say you didn't learn something today. Um, I was thinking about Milton because it was like, all right, well, we just fixed the error and they just stopped paying him, but they, just stick him in a basement or whatever. I feel like the error is not on Brennan. It's not on Arizona, or excuse me, Little Rock. I don't think they intentionally did this. I think it was just a mistake that was made. It'd be really, really hard for them to pull this away at this time. Somebody's going to make an argument about, oh, well, the rule is pretty clear, and
That'll be
sure
me.
it should have been caught earlier, and therefore, it doesn't make a difference. But I can name, and I'm going to name it right now. A couple of years ago, when the Little Rock heavyweight punched the Northern Illinois heavyweight at the MAC tournament, he should have been disqualified in that moment, and therefore taking away his team points, therefore making Central Michigan the team champions. And that didn't happen. And so clearly we're not sticklers for the rules in this sport, right? Like it's not what happens. So, somebody at the NCAA made the mistake earlier this season. It'd be criminal in my mind to pull it from them now. So let the man compete. Um, Let the team keep their points and their tournament trophy. It'd be ridiculous. And anybody who disagrees with me, I'll fight, even if they're in Virginia. I'll come down there.
Quite a
You
lot of
won't.
people, Lunch.
Offer's been on the table. So, would that like retroactively give Stencil a sixth MAC championship somehow?
No, he got his vibes fair and
Oh,
square.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay, fair.
It would give him a
So
team trophy, though, I think.
that'd be good.
Maybe not. Maybe not. I don't think he was there
So,
anymore.
so I feel like there's been so many things over the last few weeks that we've kind of come to the same consensus with. It's either we have rules or we don't. Either we're going to follow the rules or we're not. And there's so much gray area that we're working in. Yeah, it sucks for him. I mean, he's had a hell of a season. He's Pac-12 championship. Can't take that away. But at the same time, like he's getting something that other people aren't able to get. And he's getting an additional year that other people don't get. So it's a weird space to operate in. And I mean, it's been such a clusterfuck, to put it nicely, with the COVID year being added and some people getting it and some conferences not getting it. And just that the whole everything around it has been such a mess that it's not super surprising that we are in a situation like this, that compliance departments, and ultimately I think that's kind of who it falls on, is a compliance issue somewhere along the line. Either their interpretation was that he was eligible and that was okay, or I don't know. There's so many weird variables to it, but it's hard to say, you qualified for the NCAA tournament for the first time. We just found out that, oh, you don't get to do it. So that sucks. But is it fair to the guy who didn't win a Pac-12 championship, who would have if he were ineligible there? Is it fair to the guy who would go to the NCAA's because he's not eligible? So there's a lot of like you can't call it fairness because it's not going to be fair across the board because somebody's going to get messed over somewhere on one side
So
or the other. So it's just a shitty situation in general.
a quick counter argument, and then I'll let other people talk. But
No, it's just going to be you and me today.
yeah, exactly. Um, the I'm the guy who's at my like 9-year-old daughter's game, like getting so mad at the refs, like playing basketball, and I know that they're like 11-year-olds though, right? Like so ultimately I can't get that mad, and I'm growing as a person and I'm becoming better. But because Craig in the NCAA compliance office screwed this up, doesn't mean that it screws up, the whole season and for Little Rock and for Tyler Brennan. So you know, there's this phantom Craig that I've made up who stamped it as approved and let him compete. Like that has nothing to do with the team. It has nothing to do with Brennan and like I don't know how it could be stripped from him at this point.
I think you just put both of them in the pigtail. Winner wins, ball don't lie. Let's make it happen.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of that falls on the Little Rock compliance. I mean,
Yeah.
that's what these people are kind of paid to do is look at NCAA rules, who's eligible, who's not, when it comes to, years of eligibility, when it comes to GPA, things like that. And I think to me, it looks like someone at the school screwed up, whether that was intentional or not. Um, but yeah, I mean, my opinion is you can't let the kid wrestle now. It sucks it came down to this and this far in the season, but it's if he gets a fifth year, where do you draw the line? It's like, oh, we made a mistake. Now everyone else gets a fifth year. It's like, well, that can't happen, right? So to me, it's why would you give this guy a special exception because no one caught it? At least we're catching it now. It's good, but again, I feel bad for the Pac-12 runner-up because that guy, I think he should be the next guy in. But with the brackets already set, like Willie and Bash were saying this morning, it does suck that way. I wish there was more time to get that Pac-12 runner-up in the bracket and move on and make it right. But yeah, it's a shame all around, honestly.
Yeah, and he wouldn't even be the Pac-12 runner-up. Wouldn't even be the guy, the alternate. The wrestler from Ryder would be the alternate.
Yeah,
So
Yeah, because
like,
he was 34.
yeah,
I mean,
so it wouldn't even go to the Pac-12 runner-up. But like, my thought on it is one, how the hell does this happen? Right? Like, and none of it do I put on the coaching staff. Like none of it because
it's
with
not their
the
job to monitor compliance.
exactly right. Like, and not only that, but like the way that we have had COVID years and injury years and Olympic years. I mean,
Gray
hell,
years,
I
blue
mean,
years.
Kevin's got a Michigan hat on. When Micic was at Michigan, I couldn't even keep all his years straight at a point.
Mhm.
Dude was
So
32, his
Red,
seventh senior year.
that's what I'm saying. Like
red shirt injury Olympic. I think that might have been
I
it.
think that
But
might have
yeah.
been
Gray
it. But
shirt,
yeah, there were
gold
there were like
jacket, green jacket.
3 years that he
full
had
remission.
in there that like I was like, wait, he's still here? He's still here. Okay, cool. No big deal. He's got the eligibility and he's, everything is handled. I mean, hell, Gable came back after 2 years of missing,
Mhm.
Yeah,
right?
So we had the
And
same
still had a
conversation about
year.
Gable. We've had the same conversation about Ferrari missing years. And like
Yeah.
compliance offices are the bane of every head coach's existence. Every single head coach will tell you that dealing with compliance sucks. And some people have compliance officers they love. Some people have compliance officers they hate because it's their job to nitpick every single little thing and every single rule and regulation. That's what they do. That's what they get paid to do. And for some reason, some people like to do that. That's beyond me. But there's people in place for that. That's their job. And if they miss that, that's on them. And it doesn't take away from what Arizman and his team did this year because they had
For
an
sure.
amazing year. It doesn't take away from what Brennan did this year because he did. I mean, he sucked it up and came back for the team and had a hell of a year.
But
And
it would though.
yeah,
Historically,
it
it would.
ultimately, yeah, it would. And that sucks. But that sets a precedent that makes it so you'd be like, oh, we didn't know. I didn't know I couldn't do that. Like, it's not how it works.
I
Rules are
mean,
rules, and there's consequences when you break them. Same thing we talked about with Knox last week or 2 weeks ago. It's
yeah. Yeah, and that's the thing, right? Like there's there's so many rules that have been skirted in the last couple of weeks, right? Like the whole Big 12 thing with weigh-ins and guys in or they out, whatever else. Like it's just been so much shit in the last like couple of weeks that we've been talking about outside of the actual wrestling. I don't think that they should take it away from him because they made the mistake and it was not his job to call out somebody else's mistake when he thought he was fully in his right. It can't be. I mean, I would understand if they did. I'm not saying that they would be in the
Right.
wrong if they did. I'm saying that they shouldn't because then they are taking out their mistake on him, and it's not his fault, and it's not Aerosmith's fault. It's whoever's fault who's supposed to monitor that. You
Craig.
had one job,
Fucking
right?
Craig.
Yeah, whoever Craig is, you had one job and you didn't do it, and now all these other people suffer because you didn't do your job correctly. So like I couldn't see them taking this away from a kid who didn't do anything wrong. However,
Do you
we've
know the
seen
NCAA?
yeah, exactly.
Well,
That's what I'm saying. We have seen it a number of times where kids do nothing wrong. They are fully compliant within the rules and they don't think they're breaking any rules. And then the NCAA comes in and says, no, you aren't allowed to compete. So it's a very shitty situation. And it certainly does change the history because his team points helped his team win a team title. He won a title himself and qualified for the NCAA tournament. And now that will be taken away. And who's to say what other things retroactively get taken away, right? He was 16-8 going coming out of this. Do those 16 guys that he beat have one less win now? Do you know? And if so, if that's
Does
what
that
you're
change RPI?
retroactively
Yeah.
going to do, pull him
How
out
does
of the
this
tournament,
impact
then
RPI?
yes, like it affects RPI,
This breaks the
it
matrix.
affects a ton. You have like there's a number of things that you then have to dive into, and I guarantee you, they say if we let him wrestle, there's a number of things we don't have to do. There's a number of paperwork that we no longer have to file or have to worry about. Let him wrestle. That's probably if I'm in those meetings and I'm running those meetings, that's my logic. You're making
Yeah.
extra work for us now. I don't want this is not time this is not a time I want to think about extra shit.
The
Nobody likes to do
mistake
paperwork.
the mistake is entering this conversation thinking that fairness is being considered at all. Really, like
Yeah, it's not.
that's not the point of finding a solution here. It's just to how easy would it be to pull him out and slide somebody else in? Oh, not easy. Cool. All right. Well, our bad.
Well,
Damn it, Craig.
maybe there's a middle ground too, though. I mean, if we're acting or believing in good faith that they thought he was eligible, had been told he was eligible by their compliance department, then maybe the middle ground is okay, we don't change past results, but we are now finding that you're ineligible and you're not allowed to wrestle on NCAAs, and we slide the alternate in. And maybe that's the simplest solution and the cleanest way to cut it off. I mean, it still sucks for everyone involved, but it's probably the easiest way and most clean cut way to go about it without having to impact everything from prior in the season and still being able to, because the alternate's going to be there anyway in case somebody misses weight day one, right? Or somebody gets hurt in warm-ups the day before, so they're already going to be there. So why
Yeah,
not
but
just slide him in?
we've seen how the NCAA works in vacating wins, right? Like we've seen it work in other sports with coaches that do whatever, and the NCAA is like, okay, well now we have to punish them, and they vacate wins, and and they take away trophies, and they get rid of whatever retroactively. We've seen it. I mean, Reggie Bush just got his damn Heisman back this year. So like they retroactively will come in and try to do some sort of clean slate removal. And I do not think that if they pulled him out of this tournament, that they would just be like, everything that already happened, it happened. We can't go back and fix it, because the NCAA is notorious for literally trying to do that whenever some shit happens in any other sport.
Remember when Kelvin Sampson was fired for like texting a kid when like some weird gray period when you're not allowed to text a kid?
Yep.
And like he just didn't know that, but they fired him, and like now Indiana hasn't had a good coach since him. Like, and now that's completely legal too, by the way. Like texting was just too new at the time. So
Yeah.
the NCAA kicks its own self in the butt over and over again.
That's
So
the other thing. We read reports about the NCAA possibly making eligibility 5 years long. So like
Yeah.
if
Like that's on the table right now.
yeah, if that comes into light 2 or 3 years from now, like are they gonna take
or
away
this summer,
and then put them
like
back in?
like you pull them out of the tournament and then 6 months later go, this is okay now, like all the time.
I just think it opens a huge can of worms if you let him wrestle because there's gonna be a lot of people coming back wanting that 5th year that could have had it. Josh Humphreys is an example.
Mhm.
He used
Oh,
his
yes,
yeah, and
those
yeah,
dudes are done.
Humphreys tried to use a medical red shirt for that 2021 season because he didn't compete during the season. He couldn't get that extra year back. So there's already kind of a precedent set there, which is probably what they might rely on. But it just sucks for guys that couldn't do that 4th year because of COVID. They only got 3 years, and then boom, that's it. Now we're letting guys get 5. It seems weird.
Yeah. Well,
We also didn't used to let people get money. So there's that too.
there's a lot of
a
things that
new
are
game.
retroactively happening now that never was a thing, but after they look at them, they are happy to change them, and moving forward, everything is okay. So, like I said, I think that honestly, I think that the cleanest thing to do is to just move forward as if everything is just everything. Like nothing changes. Just go. Right? Like
I just feel
because like
like
I
they're going to
said,
be open themselves up for too many lawsuits, and that's how they're going to look at it.
yeah, but they would do that anyway. Like no
Yeah,
matter
but
what, there's
you're
something
looking
is
at one lawsuit versus 33. Like effectively anybody in the bracket or who didn't make the bracket because of it is a potential litigant at that point.
well, we'll certainly see what comes of it.
I'm
I
a potential litigant right now. I don't like
Mhm.
them.
I won't be surprised either way. Put it that way. I will not be surprised if they said, if it was a NCAA, our bad, keep it moving kind of a thing. Because let's
Can we
be honest.
sacrifice a compliance officer like to the gods?
I mean,
Right.
think about how many times wrestling pops up on the NCAA's radar. Like as opposed to the other big money sports that they truly worry about, right? It was funny, like it made me laugh today when Nomad tweeted, um, we always put ourselves, I'm paraphrasing, we always put ourselves in these situations where it gets to lawsuits and whatever else. I'm like, I'm
We
sorry, but this is spoken
come
like
on,
somebody
Nomad.
who
Rich coming from you. Hey,
only pays
Yeah.
attention. I wasn't going there, but I'm saying my thought was this is coming from someone who is only paying attention to one sport. Because if you truly paid attention to collegiate sports,
Right.
you would know that there is a lawsuit basically every single day in other sports where there's a bunch of bullshit that is happening. As somebody that covers other sports and has conversations on other podcasts about other sports, there is always some shit going on. This isn't even this is a drop in the bucket. This is nothing kind of lawsuit. The wrestling lawsuits aren't very big. They actually rarely happen when it comes to the grand scheme of things. So
Mhm.
it's he's basically standing on a mountain and looking up at an even greater mountain saying we have a lot of lawsuits. No, we don't have a lot of lawsuits. We do not. So it may seem that way because you're only in your own world.
Right.
But we don't. We really don't. Shit certainly happens in wrestling, but not to this point. I just think that when you're only paying attention to one world, it's going to look like there's a lot of litigation, and there really isn't a lot of litigation. There's a lot of rumor, there's a lot of bullshit, there's a lot of people grandstanding, there's a lot of people talking a lot of shit because we all think that we are the toughest people in the world, and on Twitter everybody is 6'17" and 350 pounds with a 24 pack abs, and they think that they can beat everybody's ass. But
Did you see Conch's his scratch on his chin today?
Oh, look
I
at that.
I, I
Yeah.
did.
Tough.
Boom. Man, I survived.
It would
It's all
be
right, guys.
it would be even tougher if we didn't know that Claunch coaches like elementary school, middle school
I
kids.
do. I do. This was from an adult, though. This was
Big kid.
adults wrestling adults.
I don't want to hear about your Friday nights,
Yeah.
Claunch.
Consensually.
Anyway,
Consensually.
80 pounds,
podcast.
80 pounds of violence right here.
all right, let's go with some conference talk. Let's stick in the Pac-12 because we're already there. It was a great performance outside of the whatever is happening at 174. It was a great performance by Little Rock. It really, really was. I was really impressed by Nasir Bailey in his match. Like it was very sneaky. We've obviously seen guys throw a leg in these situations, but the way that he did it was very impressive because he's on the edge of the mat and he's got an arm and he like extends the guy out and pulls him back in to the point where you could tell that the guy was fighting, but he had to extend because he's being pulled by Bailey. And then Bailey just sneaks a leg in and picks up the takedown. And it's just like it was sneaky. It was a very sneaky kind of long legged attack from Bailey to get the win. But the most impressive guy for me was Jordan Williams. He looked phenomenal in the finals, and it was a really good run for him. And it's after all the nonsense and stuff that he had to go through in order to even get to Little Rock, and it sucks that it all those things took place and that he does have kind of a bad past with being at Oklahoma State. But it's awesome to see him doing well and wrestling well, and everything that Arisman and those guys are doing at Little Rock is just incredible. Did you guys get a chance? I know we were probably all kind of split with all of our different conferences, but I know that one was like them and
A
what
week
was it?
ago,
Yeah,
Thursday.
Pac-12 was the
Yeah.
first one, so it was Thursday. So we were all able to kind of watch that. Do you guys have any takeaways from Pac-12s?
Jordan Williams is my big one. I was super impressed with how he looked.
He's the prettiest looking wrestler. Like his style, his smoothness. It just when he hits those duck unders, where he's just like completely flat on his laces, and the guy's completely behind him, and he's just looking up. It's awesome. It's awesome looking. So, I don't know. I mean, ultimately, yeah, we're gonna get to it. AJ Ferrari put in some work. He got a top 10 win at this point.
Finally,
Hey,
Yeah, that's good. We can't do the thing where we're like, get a top 10 win and then we'll like respect you, and then he does it and
No,
go
no.
like, oh, sweet win.
Well, I agree.
no, I
agreed and disagreed though, because
yeah, it came
clearly
way,
wasn't a full strength Stephen Little either. Like the head bonk was.
I won't.
was
I
legit.
won't. Yeah, I won't give the injury caveat. I won't go there. But I will say that like it took too long for him to have a win over a top tier guy. There were too many opportunities for him to have those top tier wins, specifically CKLV. There was a number of guys that were there that he should have went and wrestled, and he didn't wrestle Stephen Little during the duel either. So I'm not gonna poo-poo the win for sure. It wasn't his most impressive by any means. The ride out, tough ride out, but like it wasn't an impressive win for somebody who everybody thinks is like such a killer, right?
Also for saying that for himself saying that he was going to tech him, and then
yeah, he doesn't have
He
any.
did say that?
Anybody
Oh.
ranked that he wrestled this year, he didn't tech.
I didn't know that. Yeah.
Really, there really aren't too many guys that he teched this year. So like, I'm glad that he finally wrestled a game opponent, and I think they both wrestled very well. But there were no takedowns in it. I mean, there was escape and a ride out. It was 2-0. Nothing that was that impressive.
I think his interview the day before was more entertaining than his actual wrestling. But
Yeah,
that was
yeah.
chaos.
separate topic,
That
right?
was chaos.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it
a
was.
little interesting. Just everything he says is crazy. It's one thing to the next and completely different topics. And like, what's this guy talking about? Part of it's
The
entertaining.
allusion to
part of it's
transferring to Iowa, that was fun.
yeah, like, yeah, I might be here, I might not. You never know with NIL. Like, who says that?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just
Thanks for taking a chance on
entertaining,
me,
to say the
Luke.
least.
I'm gonna run away now.
Yeah. Thanks for giving me an opportunity. Who's highest bidder next is essentially what that was. But no, I mean, I thought the match was great. Not great in the sense of like action, 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 but in the sense of two top tier guys wrestling. Great
Yeah, it
match.
was like an NCAA
Tactical.
quality match. Like
It
it's a
was.
2-0 tight match, and that was a good one for him to win, and he looked good. I am very interested to see if he can string together multiple difficult matches, though. He hasn't been tested since last NCAA run, and that's multiple years ago now. And he's not going to have an easy path. So I'm very interested to see how he handles multiple days of weigh-ins, multiple difficult matches. It's going to be interesting.
Yeah.
Ultimately, what's going to bite him in the ass is going to be if he starts
Many things, life.
well, specifically with the upcoming wrestling tournament.
Okay.
It's between the ears, if he starts freaking out on refs or the situation or starts feeling like he's not getting the proper respect or situations are unfolding, like that's where you're going to see him unravel. It's not going to be wrestling because he's been very, very consistent all year. He's
That's fair.
very stingy on his feet. He can score when he needs to. He rides out dudes all the time. And we can always go back to the argument about, who he's beating, but still, that's what he's done all year long. So whether he's teched people or not, he's winning matches and he's doing it in the same sort of way. That's his game plan going in. So if he can keep his shit together, he could be in the finals again.
Yeah, I'll certainly give him props for having a clean year and staying out of trouble. And I mean, he didn't wrestle every competition that we probably wanted him to wrestle in, but he had a clean year. He did well. He won a conference championship, qualified for NCAAs. He's the 3 seed where he should be. So I will give him full credit for that, right? Because at Oklahoma State, he was not without some sort of negative attention on himself. Even before even getting into Iowa, was not without negative attention on himself. So I will give him all the props and all the credit because he deserves it. You did a good job and you deserve to be told that you did a good job. So I will certainly give him that credit and those props. I want to see him continue to be consistent. He was consistent for a year. Continue to be consistent. Continue to be that guy. Because as a wrestler, I have zero issue with anything that he's ever really done as a wrestler. He's always wrestled and not really truly been like a dirty wrestler, so to speak, but like he's been great on the mat. And he's been
just all the other stuff is, being a good human being is the other
exactly.
issue.
So I want to see him continue to be consistent because I feel like a good AJ Ferrari is good for the sport. It is good for wrestling. I could care less about the cringy videos and everything else. Like, if that's how you want to market yourself, you go right ahead. I would much rather you do the cringy, dumb shit in a weight room or whatever else, have a sporadic interview as opposed to messing up again. Right. I don't want to
Yes.
ever see any wrestler mess up. Every time I've talked to AJ Ferrari, he's been respectful of me. He's been, nice to me. He's never been disrespectful. Always had great conversations with him. So I give him those props. However, his past off the mat, you can't ignore that. But I do give him credit for having a very good year.
Is your deadlift PR while you were wearing just underwear?
It is not. No, it's
Oh,
not. I was
see, that's where
I
you
was
went
wearing
wrong.
all sweats. And it is 75 pounds shy of his. I will say that. So
See, strip to your undies and your socks, knock it out. You're good to go.
yeah, the real power comes in when you're wearing nothing. But no, like I said, I give him credit. I think it was a good consistent year, clean year, respectful year, which is exactly what we want. Sans the celebration and whatever else, he's kind of made it a trademark at this point. So it kind of is what it is. I hope we don't see it every single match that he wins at NCAAs. Um,
Yeah.
I'm
We will.
hoping he just gets his hand raised and walks off the mat. Like, you win an NCAA title, bring that sucker out. But besides that, keep the celebration in the holster. But no,
The fact we could see him against Glazier in round 2, though, is hilarious.
that's gonna be fun. And we'll certainly get to the bracket. But I want to move to Big 12s. Big 12s was in my estimation, the best conference tournament. And I don't mean that in a sense of like, Big Tens is Big Tens, right? But Big 12s gives you everything. There's a team race, there's animated coaches, there's, everything that you have. There's great matches. I was thoroughly impressed by everything that went on when it came to Big 12s. And certainly we had the weigh-in incident and who's in, who's out. Glad everybody's in. Let them wrestle, whatever. I understand rules are rules, but we don't need any of the nonsense. Just let them wrestle. They make weight, didn't they? Whatever. Get them on the mat and go. But Big 12s literally had everything. And the fact that there was a team implication for everything going on in this tournament between Oklahoma State and UNI, who UNI has the most wrestlers from Iowa going to the NCAA tournament. So props to good old Doug Schwab once again. That's what had me just like glued to watching it and wanted to see every single one of those matches. What were your guys' takeaways? Any matches that stuck out to you with Big 12s? Anything that was just like, holy shit, can't believe that happened?
Kyle Berwick. He looked great.
Concur.
Saw him early in the year. He was out here. They wrestled Virginia, and he didn't. I wasn't. I mean, he wrestled well, but I wasn't super impressed with him. And I feel like he's really come on the back half of the year and looks really good going into NCAA's.
Yeah, 174 was obviously my favorite match. O'Toole and
Yeah, that was awesome.
Amity winning that, we'll finding a way late, and that takedown in overtime was beautiful. Keeping that leg on the mat. I forget who had a breakdown of it on Twitter. Might have been Terrapelli.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, is that who it was? Just kind of walking through that, and yeah, it's just top-notch technique, and it's when it mattered, he gutted it out. It was awesome to see, and it earned O'Toole the 1 seed, at NCAA. So it'll be fun to see who he faces in the finals. So yeah, that 74 was my favorite, and Keck just beating the brakes off Plot again. Didn't major him this time. He was probably upset about that, but yeah, 7-point victory is pretty freaking good over Plot.
I didn't actually plan this. I happened to wear this shirt anyway, but Northern Colorado got two champs and neither of them were Alirez. So that's pretty awesome for that crew. Steve-O was, certainly not in the finals, but he's if he's qualified for the tournament, he's certainly one of those guys. I mean, we've talked about him before. We know, was it last week we were just saying like how great it is that he's like making a name outside of himself, outside of that YouTube video or whatever, But you got Dom Serrano, had an awesome finals match, beating your Kyle Berwick there in that. Vinny Zerban, didn't have the. It's funny because like last year he had such a good year. Was he undefeated going into the Big 12s or was it
Zerban?
like?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. So like, and we looked at it and we were like, it's not. I don't know. There were some questions there, and then it didn't pan out at NCAA's, but like. This seems different, right? Like it really does. So I'm really happy for them and what they're doing, and I'm excited to see what they're able to do. And then ultimately, like again, Alira's at the 8 seed. Like we'll get to that in a moment, but Jesus, that's the worst 8 seed you're going to run into.
Yeah,
like a dude who is probably angry and getting himself back on the horse and ready to go. So. And real quick, just a shout out O'Toole as well. Like, I mean, he took some time for injury this year and came back, and to get that win in the fashion that he did, and to make sure that he was positioned really well on that side of the bracket. Like, God, I mean, part of that's got to be just understanding how important it was to do that. Because what was his bracket last year? He had to go through Carr in the semis, and ultimately didn't get it done. Like. So he knew he needed the 1 seed this year. It was too tough.
Definitely. Yeah, I'm as I said for Schwab, and I mean UNI certainly isn't an off the radar team. Everybody knows about UNI at this point. Given what Keckheisen has done over the years. But I was really happy to see Obi be able to celebrate something this year.
Yeah.
You know, it's got to be rough when you get the job and your biggest studs leave, and you're like, man, I have some guys that are in this lineup, excuse me, that can do some damage, and they're gone before, you know, basically right as you're named the coach, they're already gone and out the door and packed. So seeing them, you know, develop these guys into Big 12 finalists, and you know, getting a huge upset from Darty, who beat Figueroa, like that's big time, right? Like that is certainly big time. Ultimately, you know, Figueroa comes back and plays his third, and you know, pins Steve-O and everything else. But like, man, it's big time to see Obi having some success now. Just like, you know, just as we said, Northern Colorado doing the same with guys that are not named Alirez who've won NCAA championships. Um, but man, it was impressive to see all these guys just kind of scrapping as much as they did, and there's just like so much contention. The the match that I was surprised was close, just based off of how this guy had been wrestling all year, is the final at heavyweight. I thought that Hendrickson would have had some more kind of horsepower against Colton Schultz. And not to take anything away from Colton Schultz, it's just that we've seen how Hendrickson has been just like a man amongst boys this entire year. He's looked Gable Steveson esque against a lot of the competition and just like pinning people left and right. So, um, it just kind of had me surprised that wasn't that was as close as it was. And again, not a slight to Colton Schultz. I love that kid. It was more so like Hendrickson has been on a tear this year, and it was tough to see anybody really slowing him down in the conference, or you know, outside of, you know, Gable or Kirkfleet, to really see him slow him down. So I was surprised by that one.
I was more impressed with him because he was out there trying to hit high crotches on Colton Schultz. Just like just like whatever. Like I'm 125 pounds, not 125 kilograms. Like just, you know, just out there, and that's a big dude. That's one of the biggest dudes. I mean, what was it? 3 weeks ago, the Treffin picked him up, and everybody was like, "Holy shit!" Like
Treffin is equally as big though.
He's a big
sure, sure. But my point is, like, you don't often see guys like intentionally put themselves underneath Colton Schultz.
Yeah,
Very true.
And that's all Hendrickson did without hesitation. So I was impressed by that, at least. Maybe it was the wrong move. Maybe that's what slowed him down. As it turns out, that's a big guy, and you don't want to be there.
You got to go snatch single on those very large legs.
yeah. I guess my
It's
final
like picking up a Ford Focus.
yeah. I mean, my final thing is, you know, just look at the team scores. You got a lot of these, you know, small, maybe under the radar schools that are really making some noise in the Big 12. You have Northern Iowa, you know, they're pretty small program, second place, 4 points behind Oklahoma State. And third, you have South Dakota State, fourth, Iowa State, fifth, Northern Colorado. And then you got big schools like West Virginia, Oklahoma, and Mizzou, 6, 7, 8, you know, so it's good to see, you know, maybe some disparity between some of those big schools, big time schools that you expect to be well funded and traditional powerhouses, you know, not at the top, and you see some of these smaller schools making some noise with a lot less financial incentive and, you know, just maybe not the notoriety that they have, you know. So I think it's cool to see schools like Northern Iowa, South Dakota State, schools like that outplacing some of these big time powerhouses. So, you know, it's just something I noticed too.
South Dakota State had 9 qualifiers.
Yeah. And in schools like Arizona State down in 11th place. I mean, yeah, obviously it's a down year for them, but
They
I
went
think
into the tournament without 2 guys.
it's they had a little bit of a mass exodus there when some of those guys left, but yeah, I mean, it wasn't too long ago. They were like third or fourth, maybe fifth at NCAs. You know, it seems like a lifetime ago at this point, but hopefully they bounce back and turn it around.
Were they the last dual team to beat Penn State?
I think they were.
I think they were as well.
Yeah.
No, didn't Iowa beat them like Or am I mistaken? I could have. Maybe it was close between Iowa and Penn State, but I don't remember.
Iowa might have
I
been in
do
there. I
remember
just
Arizona
remember that
State
Penn
beating
State.
them though.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe I would beat
Yeah.
them after that. But yeah, Arizona
Yeah.
State, it was like what, 2020 before COVID
Yeah,
happened?
that was a couple of years ago, so that's probably why I can't remember it.
Yeah,
That might
Yeah,
have been that. I think that was the when Kemmerer beat Hall in
yeah,
Iowa. Yeah.
that have been it.
I think so. All right, let's move to the ACC, and bring Robbie's big old ACC brain in here, and give us what happened at Cameron Indoor, the very historic Cameron Indoor.
Julius Creed showed up in a onesie.
Yeah, he did.
That was pretty fun.
I texted him about that. I was texting him earlier today too.
I told him I just want to snuggle with him because he looked like a big Care Bear.
He's a
So
large
awesome.
human being. He is
He
a
is.
really
He's-
large dude.
Jacob Casper is one of the nicest people
He is.
in the world, though.
So awesome.
Yes.
Always loved the chance to catch up with Jacob. So it was really cool seeing him come in. And he just sat down and started broadcasting. It wasn't even planned. He just did. So that was fun.
Yeah,
Um,
he's
but
a
no,
really
it
good
was-
being.
Yeah, he's a sweetheart, though. I love Jacob. It was a very long day. You'd think that adding one team to a tournament wouldn't be a huge deal, but it added 3 hours of wrestling. The tournament was 3 hours longer than it has been the last few years. So it was a very, very long day. Finals didn't get over to almost 11. So that was not optimal when I had the 3 hour drive back home and had to work the next morning. So that was fun. Awesome tournament overall. I mean, 5 of the finals went to sudden victory, which also contributed to the very long night. But I mean, you can't be upset with what we got to see. Ventresca and Robinson went to overtime again. Ventresca got it done again, very similar to their first match. McGonigal went to overtime with Orini, who came in not even having a spot. Orini knocked off Oakley, the 1 seed. McGonigal beat Orini in overtime. Also very similar to their dual match. Cedeno got a title for UVA, beat Latona 8-6. That was a great matchup. I mean, it was fun. Henson looked great. Henson McNeil went to sudden victory as well. Henson got the takedown in sudden victory. That was a very, very stingy match. Lachlan's
McNeil
very
went to
hard
overtime with Abbas too. So like
He did.
after that, maybe he scored all his points in that tech in the first round and was just like, man, I don't know if I have any other shots left.
He didn't. He didn't have. I guess he had one more shot left because he beat Abbas with a takedown.
Yeah, that was it.
He only scored 5 points the rest of the night in his next 2 matches. So, I mean, that's what you get with Lachlan, though. He's super difficult to score on and generally can create situations to score, but wasn't able to do that against Henson. Was able to do it against Abbas, but it took him a while to get there. My boy Hippolito got it done. I've been telling you guys since the beginning of the year. He's the one to watch out for. What do you get? The 7 seed?
4.
4. I'm way off. 4 seed. So, yeah, he has a good route too. Looking at that, we'll get to that. But he looked fantastic. 65 was an interesting weight. Hunter Garvin looked great. Nick Hamilton looked great. It was a really tight final match. I don't think any outside of Garvin, none of them really got any favors for seeding for NCAAs, and that was a pretty solid weight with Church getting 3rd, Fields getting 4th. Some good people in that weight. 74, Matty Singleton had a hell of a day. He looked fantastic. His defense is incredible. He was able to get to his angles and score some points. Did some just wild stuff to get out of takedowns too. And Heller looked great. Fishback. That was some crazy scrambles there. It was a fun tournament, start to finish. The biggest surprise, I think, was heavyweight, because Trumbull showed up in a giant knee brace. He apparently tweaked his knee in the duel against Virginia Tech in the match with Mullen, and he did not look good. Wasn't moving well. Didn't look like himself at all. Got beat in the second round, and didn't wrestle again. So I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful that he has enough time to heal up and get to a place that he's able to wrestle. But Pitzer beat him 4-1. in the quarters, and then Pitzer beat Mullen in overtime. So Pitzer had a great tournament after having a rough ACC season. But yeah, I mean, the story of the tournament was Mullen, or not Mullen, was Trumbull, because top 5 coming in and places 5th, 6th, 5th, 6th because he defaulted. Yeah, placed 6th and 5 qualified. So he had to get an at-large for one of the top 5 guys in the country. So I'm hopeful that he's in a position to compete, because up until this, he was a threat to be in the finals, I think.
Yeah, now he's the 7 seed.
Which is still, I mean, it shows you how good his season was to default out of a tournament and still get the 7 seed. But
that's generous for a guy placing 6th in the ACC.
Yeah.
You know what's wild is, and we talked about this last year, and Nick Hamilton is now a 2-time ACC finalist, 1-time champ, and got a horrible seed last year. This year, runner-up. Once again, horrible seed.
Yeah.
And he has Cam Amin first round.
Yeah. And he has 3 losses on the year. 2 of them
are
losses. Hunter Garvin.
He's 11-2.
He's 11-2 against the field. He has a loss to Brock Matanoda, not Bo.
Right.
Oh, so that one
doesn't count towards the matrix. So his only losses on the year that are countable are to Hunter Garvin, and they were both 1-score matches.
Well, and interestingly enough, the Brock Matanoda loss, may at first glance look bad, but then Brock went out there and beat 7th ranked Alex Kramer at the weight class above that.
Brock Matanoda is going to be damn good. That he's impressive.
So, but it's tough. I mean, Hamilton has had such a good year, and he's put himself in a good position. I think he does match up pretty well with Amin. I mean,
I like him in that match, honestly.
I honestly do too. Amin's not going to go out there. Yeah, he's going to slow him down. He's going to hold good position. That's kind of what Cam wants to do anyway. Either of those guys could win that match. I wouldn't be surprised either way.
And Nick Hamilton's also a tank at 165. He was solid. So, I mean, it's terrible seed. He's got a rough route, but it's manageable. If he makes it through his first match. That's really what it is.
For sure. Austin, EIWA and Ivy, what are the cliff notes on those?
Well, first I'll say EIWA's was a bit different, obviously, without the Ivies, just entire atmosphere and just the overall tournament. I just felt different. Obviously 6 less teams, half the allocations as well, so it was just different. I think it's something that we'll have to get used to as EIWA conference keeps growing. And we talked last week too, a lot of these coaches are gonna have to get their butt in gear and start earning more allocations for the conference and not worry so much about their own wrestlers, because there was a few examples out this year where they were getting their guys ready for March, but they didn't earn the allocation. So, a lot of that plan's backfired. But Lehigh won the team title with 4 champs. First time in program history. Hofstra had 2 EIWA champions as well. So some historics there. Drexel was the only team to place all 10 wrestlers. And Drexel was second place in the team standings, which I knew they'd kind of be in that, but I was kind of leaning more towards Navy, maybe Army West Point to come in second behind Lehigh. And it actually was a tight race. Looking at the team race here, it was Lehigh 143.5 and Drexel, I guess they were down by 22, by 21 points there. But yeah, Army and Navy tied for 3rd place, which I thought was interesting. And like to see those guys battle it out, pun intended, to see who actually gets 3rd. But yeah, I mean, nothing really crazy happened. A lot of good matches on the backside, especially. Coder Hunt from Navy at 141, quick pin in the finals. He's going to be someone to look out for at 141 there, coming up with the 4th seed. Yeah, it's just a shame a lot of these brackets only brought 1 allocation. So, it made the finals a lot more interesting, depending on who you're asking. But, it's a lot more on the line for some of these finals where in the years past, it was you made the finals, you were definitely going for sure, and you could kind of let it fly a little bit.
Hmm.
So a lot of these matches in the finals were maybe a little conservative, didn't want to make the mistake, and um, you know, and that's pretty much how it went. But 165, interesting story. Kyle Mosher of Hofstra, first match, he got a pin in about a minute 30. That got him into the semifinal match. He had a medical forfeit, and then the next day he had the finals, a medical forfeit. So he wrestled all of 90 seconds, one match, and ended up being EIWA champion, which
Wish we
I
could all
still,
be so lucky.
yeah, I gotta look back to see if there was anyone that spent less time on the mat to earn an EIWA title. My guess is probably no. Um, but yeah, and you got 74 guys like Brevin Casella, Danny Wask. Those guys are both, I think, top 7, top 8 seeds. So we could, potentially see 2 All-Americans there. Casella won that one in overtime. 84, we're bringing 2. 97 was very interesting as well. Michael Beard won barely by major. And heavyweight Owen Treffen kind of solidified that Lehigh crowd in the finale there and won 285-pound title. But I got to give props. Team like Morgan State, they showed out. A lot of those guys were really low seeds, ended up overperforming their seeds, and they have one alternate, Xavier Doolin, at heavyweight. He's the first alternate, so if Robbie's guy Trumbull does back out, Doolin will be in. He'll be Morgan State's first ever qualifier since being reinstated. Um,
Or
you know,
Colton Schultz doesn't make weight.
anything could happen. I just pointed out Trumbull because we were just talking about him, but yeah. So Morgan State, they showed out. Sacred Heart had a bunch of good wins. So it's good to see a little more disparity too, which is a lot of comments I heard as well. It's usually Cornell, Lehigh, Penn. A lot of those top tier level teams are kind of beating the crap at everybody, but with some of those Ivy Leagues gone, it's a lot more competitive. So you saw a lot more closer matches, and it'll be fun. Moving on to Ivies, 2 mats Sunday, single day. They kind of drug that one out as well. Similar ACCs started at 10 a.m. Finals were over by I think 9 at night. So all day event on Sunday at Princeton. Um, Cornell 10 qualifiers. I think they're one of 4 schools. They had 5 champs. Team race was interesting though. Came down to a 184-pound final where Foca beat Hale in overtime to solidify it for Cornell. So yeah, team race was very, very close there. 125, Diego Sotelo, 3rd seed, ended up in 5th, which I thought was kind of surprising. And he's actually earned the first alternate, so might not even be in the tournament after being a qualifier for 2 years and round of 16 last year. Moving down the list here, Composta, 141. Ryan Miller of Penn won 133, 149. Cross Wazlewski had a nice win over Fernandez of Cornell. Ty Whalen of Princeton also in that mix, got 3rd. Shapiro came back, tech fold everybody there, 157. He got the 2 seed NCAAs. 74 was fun to watch. Ruiz of Cornell ran the table there. Foca of Cornell, 84, won that weight. 97. Luke Stout won by tech fall. I think he had 2 tech falls in the day, so he kind of ran through that bracket. And heavyweight was a lone weight class to bring 1, and Ashton Davis of Cornell won that one. And like I said, team race was close. Cornell won by 6 points over Penn. Columbia snuck in for 3rd. They had a really good tournament. Princeton 4th. They had 2 champs as well. So yeah, pretty good day overall. It was a long 3 days for me. Friday and Saturday EIWAs, and then Sundays I went to Ivy's, caught the first half, drove home and watched the finals at home. Just felt a little guilty on lack of dad duty, I should say, over the weekend. So wanted to see the kids a little bit for the Sunday, hang out with them, put them to bed, and then watch the finals. So long weekend of me, but I'm just training for NCAAs, baby.
Yeah,
There you
it's gonna
go.
be a
There you
lot.
go.
It's gonna be a lot. I was watching the match that stuck out to me was Myers semifinal against Harrington.
Yeah.
And it was because he was getting pissed. Meyer
Yeah.
was getting so pissed because Harrington kept leading with his face and his
Yeah.
head, and just like he headbutt him once, and it happened once. And I think it was just like, okay, whatever, it happened. But then when it happened a second time, Meyer's like, that's the second time it happened. Like, we got it. Like, do you see this thing on my head? Do you think I wear this because I think it's comfortable? Like, It's not. We might have to get him the Sonny Santiago helmet to wear next year because it was you could tell it was definitely bothering him and he was trying to like when he realized how Harrington was going to wrestle him, he was just trying to stay out of harm's way and not get headbutt and just stay healthy because it was bad because he did it after that too after he called attention to it and it was pissing Meyer off a lot.
Yeah, well, that's technically Shapiro's only loss of the year, injury default to Harrington earlier in the year. So there might have been some, bad blood there, or, just Meyer definitely remembers that match of, and he was kind of losing at the time after he hit his head and then they called it. So yeah, I think those two just kind of literally butt heads going back and forth there. And 157 is interesting because they had three allocations and they're bringing five people. They earned two wild cards there with Harrington and Blake Sato of Brown. So 5 out of 6 people in the bracket went to NCAAs in that weight class, which is pretty interesting.
Awesome. Yeah, and he looked really good in the final against Jude Swisher.
Yeah,
Obviously
only a
19-2.
decision during the year in their dual
Yeah.
meet. We kind of blew that one open, and yeah, I think that semifinal, like you said, pissed him off. So he wanted to go out with a bang.
That is for sure. All right, Big Tens. Big Tens was a great time watching that one. And as you look at the seeds for NCAAs, you realize how much weight they put on Big Ten guys finals, which we'll get to. But um, thoroughly impressed by Max McAnally, and I said it before going in, is he was going to be a guy to watch, and he comes out and takes down Srirachi for the first time. He hasn't given up a takedown, and I mean he gave up takedowns last year at NCAAs, but let's call it what it is. He had basically one leg winning a
Right.
NCAA title. So he hasn't given up like a true legit takedown in a very long time. And that was a true legit takedown. And he showed that he's up there, man. I feel like he can definitely win an NCAA title if he continues on this path. And the kid is an athlete too. Like I think that was another thing that kind of contributes to him being as good as he is. So I was really impressed by him, and then obviously by my guy Lucas Bird. I never really left the Bird train. I might have changed my pick based on how he was wrestling, but man, he opened up and he's definitely on one. So very very happy with Lucas Bird and how he wrestled the entire weekend. Not leaving literally any crumbs, having his best match in the final to avenge that loss against Ayala. What other things did you guys see at Big Tens that stuck out to you?
I want to comment real quick just on the energy, and I made this point on Blood Round yesterday, but um, the I kind of equated the regular season and the postseason energy to like if you're listening to like your favorite band on Spotify or whatever, and you're like, this is awesome, and you're driving around in your car and you're just loving it. But then you go to the concert and it's a different energy entirely, and there's other people around you and they're like, this is great, and you're like, goddamn right, this is great. Like, this is awesome. Like, that's the difference between the regular season and the postseason, right? Like, it's just it's way more intense. It's way more exciting. It's just super fun. And yeah, Bird. I mean, like he's done a great job. He's one of those guys who's been around the block. He wrestles close matches when he needs to and figures out ways to win those because you don't need to necessarily push it to the fullest extent until it matters the most. And when it mattered the most, he pinned the number one ranked guy in the country, like pretty decisively. Like he would have been there for 40 minutes if Lucas wanted him to be down there for 40 minutes.
Yeah, that was tight.
Yeah.
Good
So
old cement job. I love it.
yeah. But no, I mean the whole thing was great. It's wild to see Gable. We got to appreciate Gable. We got to appreciate Ridge Lovett. Like there's some of these dudes who are not going to be around next year, and we're going to see it and realize it and be like, damn, this kind of sucks. I made the joke that Gable is like a freight train that moves like a hovercraft. Like he's just that insane. Like he just floats around. It doesn't. He picked up Nick Feldman and threw him at a photographer.
Yeah.
like
off the mat, like not even like they were on their feet. They were on the mat. They were in referee's position. He lifted him off the mat and threw him at a photographer.
I pick my kid up and I throw him into his bed and he's 6, and like, that's how it looked. So I don't know. It's just, there are things we got to appreciate and really, really enjoy. Love it. Again, his win over Parko was awesome. Just to get that done. I mean, very impressive. And then you got to appreciate Illinois across the board. Illinois had a really, really good tournament. Nebraska had a really, really good tournament. Penn State had a really, really good tournament, believe it or not. Turns out, I should probably mention them.
They're good at wrestling.
Yeah, it sucks that Josh Barr got hurt. I hope Josh Barr was able to be 90% of the capacity that he was before that. Because man, that's really impactful for what they were hoping to do. But they still managed to break their own record from last year for Big Ten points. So, you know who didn't have a good tournament? Iowa didn't have a good tournament. They had a bad tournament.
True story.
That should be
people are calling for the heads of the brands once again, which is not surprising. But
yeah,
every year about this time
like clockwork. What time is it? Yeah, I think we're there.
This is this time of year. Like, do you think Tom and Terry intentionally get different haircuts so that, like, you know what I mean? Like, if I'm Terry, I don't want Tom's haircut right now because I'll be like, oh, that's him. He's the head coach, And then if you're like Tom, when you win all the time, you're like, well, I'm Tom. This is why I have the tight cut.
I honestly think you can't pull them apart in any of the blame or the praise. They they are attached. They might as well have been Siamese twins at this point.
Yeah, but then Tom would be in the stands too.
Any other people you guys want to give shout outs to from Big Tens? Robbie, Austin.
I mean, from what I saw, it may sound silly. It might be a bad take, but I feel like a lot of Penn State guys maybe looked vulnerable. I just didn't expect to see Bartlett lose and then Van Ness lose. Messenbrink was a one takedown match, which we've never seen that all year. And then Carter overtime, and Lillidahl maybe might be an exception. He looked really, really good, obviously, but yeah, it was just strange to see a lot of those Penn State guys lose and kind of barely squeak by when you expected them to win by more. So maybe vulnerable isn't the right word there, but I think maybe expose, maybe another word too. It was just strange to see those guys lose and then those tight matches. You were kind of expecting at least Messenbrink to blow out Caliendo again, but maybe Caliendo's figuring something out there. It was interesting.
Yeah, I think you got to give props to who they wrestled, right?
Obviously, too. Yeah.
Like and maybe they were a little flat, but also maybe Vance Von Bauer is just ready for Bo Bartlett, and he controlled. I tweeted it, and he controlled that match the whole time. Bo didn't look like he was his offensive self, and I mean, the most props in that weight go to Hardy. I mean, holy hell, Brock Hardy looked so good wrestling the entire day. Like, might have been 9-8 him wrestling Mendez, but he was out in front in that match for a while. Mendez mounted a pretty damn good comeback, but Brock Hardy was just lights out and just kind of flipped the switch. I feel like maybe it's just recency bias, right? But from conference tournament to conference tournament, you saw guys peaking at the right times, guys that you wouldn't expect to win these matches, right? You thought it was a foregone conclusion that it was going to be Bartlett Mendez in the final. However, it was Bartlett Mendez in the third place match, right? So props to both Von Bauer and certainly props to Hardy. But then, I mean, you got another crazy match with Lovett followed up Hardy's run. Nebraska was amazing. They looked so damn good. Very impressed with everything they did. Like I blinked and then looked up and was like, oh shit, Rich Lovett is out to a 10-1 lead. Like, what the hell's going on right now? Well, I had to like go back. I'm like, what did I just miss? And I was like, oh, that's a lot of points. Like he just really, really opened up and put it on him. Obviously, he, kind of shut it down, for real, shut it down in the finals to only win 1-0. But, props to Nebraska for real. They did a really, really good job throughout the entire tournament. Each one of their guys looked really, really good. And so I was impressed. I was definitely impressed by them. And,
They had
and
new combat speeds.
they did. I mean,
But it was.
the ones that Lovett had on, those were popping. I think those are
Fire.
those are gonna fly off the shelves whenever they come out. The we talked about Brock Mantanona. Bo Mantanona came out and took Messenbrink down and was like, "Yeah, I'm in this right now. Like I'm gonna come out and score a takedown right now." And
It was impressive, and then it was not.
And then it wasn't. It was over.
I blame that he had only wrestled for 2 minutes before that. That's his problem. He should have wrestled longer, but he pinned his guys too fast.
Should have pinned Messenbrink.
What's happening with Patty
In retrospect.
What's going on with Patty Gallagher to medical forfeit out?
That was weird. He didn't. He medically forfeited out of that match.
No, and then he forfeit in the 7th and 8th place match too.
He wrestled in between.
He wrestled,
but he did wrestle in between.
He did wrestle in between. He wrestled Lillard and he won 7-4, and then he wrestled Sparks and he lost 4-1, and then medical forfeit out to 8th place. So it was like really weird because he looked very healthy, against Messenbrink, like when he was on the mat against Messenbrink. 1 second medical forfeit, and then on to the next one. It was just like, that was really weird.
That makes me worried that it's a head thing then. Because if there's no tape, I mean, they're going to tape up whatever they're going to tape up, right? You see dudes, I mean, covered in tape and shoulder braces or whatever all the time. It makes me concerned that it's something else. And that would suck because I do like Patty Gallagher. I think a guy that was so impressive in high school and has done everything he can to be healthy and compete in college at the level that I'm sure expected himself to be at, and he hasn't gotten there yet, so that kind of stinks. So I hope he's all right and able to compete, as close to 100% as he can come NCAAs.
Yeah. Last question, and then we'll move on to NCAA brackets and some of our favorite matchups. 174, Pinto Bronigal. Was it a takedown?
I didn't think so in the moment. Granted, I was like standing in the stands and kind of watching on the TV and watched it happen live or whatever, but like, I don't know. I think the argument that you would make that it is a takedown is that the weight was on his hands, and it absolutely was. But however, when the action ended, I felt like they were kind of like horizontal, like it wasn't a controlled takedown at that point. There's weight is on people's hands all the time when they're in the air and the action's not done yet. So I didn't necessarily think that it was, but I will admit I didn't get the best view. I have to rewatch that situation again.
Yeah, I like the Tervel in the middle of the mat during that takedown though. And Greasy like in the gray in the middle of the takedown.
Oh yeah.
That was a really weird sequence, like even before the takedown, but just like the last minute of that match was just super weird. And I think that added to the chaos of the was it not a takedown.
Yeah, I was a little confused sitting at home on the couch because the Big Ten reporter tried to kind of explain what was happening, but I don't know if he had the full story or was confused. Like I still didn't understand what was going on because there was like a challenge brick, and then the rest review, and then another challenge or something like that. And
Yeah.
I just think there was too many challenges going on. I wasn't sure what the hell happened, but yeah, I want to watch that.
There was multiple challenges during that bout, and there was one challenge early in the match by Nebraska, but it didn't get overturned or whatever else, and then they came back. Then there was another. So the takedown happens at the end, and Nebraska challenges. They said there was no takedown. Nebraska challenges. They come back and say that there was a takedown. Illinois challenged that and wanted them to look at it again. And I can only assume that they were challenging that time was out. But
Yeah.
like at that point, you're triple stamp and a double stamp at this point, right?
You can't
So
triple stamp a double stamp.
you can't do it. But the thing that I said it in our group and then I tweeted it out, but the thing that I can remember, and every time I'm doing commentary, I always remember to tell people the clock you see on camera is not the official clock.
Mm-hmm.
The table has the official clock. Even though the side ref is telling him when time is out, they are looking at a different clock, and it is plugged into the computer. However, they can manually change the clock on the screen. So the clock that you are seeing is not the official clock. It never is. It is not the same one that the referees are looking at when any of these challenges are happening. They have a clock that goes down to like tenths of seconds to make sure that everything happened within time. So we're seeing, 6 seconds on the clock. They're seeing 6.72, like whatever it is. Like it is a crazy minuscule amount of seconds that they are seeing on those reviews. And I know because I've seen it. I've sat next to them as they're doing these reviews, and you see that official clock. So it's way different than what we are seeing on TV. So people saying time was out, look, there's 0 or there's 1 second and there's reaction time, whatever else. That was the part that I was like, reaction time. They've tried to use reaction time all year and there's no time for reaction in this instance, but that is not the official clock that anyone at home is watching. The official clock is on the computers that they use for those challenges. So that was the only kind of out that I was giving them of saying they are literally watching the official clock and the takedown happen simultaneously. Maybe there's more time than what we are seeing on television.
Yeah.
Any other thoughts on Big Tens?
Evanston was cool.
Yeah, you made that trip. How far is that trip for you?
It wasn't bad. It was like 3 hours, 3.5. My brother lives nearby. I missed having friends there. I will say that much. Like going to NCAAs or just going to Big Tens and tournaments and things like that normally. You got someone to go out with and talk about and kind of just go through everything with. It worked out. My brother lives in town. I stayed with him, so I got to go spend time with him and his wife, which was nice. But yeah.
The only other props I want to give is to Cardenas flipping the script on the bar loss and then also beating Buchanan. He wrestled very well and was super polished. So definitely have to give him a shout out for sure.
Number 1 seed.
Number 1 seed. And that takes us into NCAAs. So let's get to those brackets. I'm gonna go to Robbie so he can give us kind of an ACC look when it comes to these seeds. How did the ACC fare with seeds? Good, bad, ugly, somewhere in the middle? What's it look like?
Somewhere in the middle. I think some of them were friendly. Some of them were not at all. Like we already hit on Hamilton. That one was insane. 25, I think 20. I think they got 25 right. Ventresca the 3, Robinson at the 4, Spencer Moore getting a wild card and getting the 14th because he had a decent year. Not bad there. 33, McGonigal is going to have a hell of a run to get through to make this happen. He's got Bergen in the first round as a 6th seed. If he wins there, he's either going to have Evan Frost or Tyler Wells. If he wins there, he's probably going to have Nasir Bailey. So that's to get to the semi. So that's a real rough quarter there. Orini got the 26th seed, and I think he has a better route from the 26th than McGonigal has from the 6, which is kind of crazy.
I don't know about that.
Buzakis took 3rd at the Big Ten.
He could have Arini could have Buzakis and then Shawver.
Or
And
Sean
then
Spital.
Ayala. That's a hell of a run.
Yeah, but I guess I'm thinking style wise. I think that's the style wise that those matches are better for Arini than they are for McGonigal, just in comparison of how they would match up. But we also take into account that Arini's a 2-time All-American and he's managed these paths before. So
Sure.
maybe that's playing into
if Arini makes the finals, holy shit.
Yeah.
That's a run. That is a run.
Yeah.
Because as I said, Buzakis, if it goes by seeds, he's got Buzakis first round, then Shawver in the second round, Ayala in
Assuming he beats Sean Spital.
Exactly, right?
Fire up,
Then he would have Ayala, Nasir Bailey in the semis,
Lucas Bird in the finals.
and then Lucas Bird in the finals. That would be a sick run.
Yeah.
You're saying there's a chance.
There's a chance. There's a chance. I wouldn't say it's a great chance, but there is a chance. Now, I will say, with as not good as Kai looked at the Virginia Tech duel, he looked really sucked out. I don't know if he was sick or just had a bad cut or what. He looked great this weekend. He looked like he managed it better. He looked healthier. He looked like he was in his best form. And we saw a great run from him. So that's good to see.
Any I don't want to make you go through every weight. Any like egregious seeds that you've seen in any weight class for any of the ACC guys?
65 is really the one that stood out to me, just kind of overall, because 65 was deep in the ACC, but they weren't like super highly ranked guys, but like middle tier ranked, really solid guys with decent records. And I don't feel like that was very reflected in the rankings. ACC champ is Hunter Garvin. He gets a 7 seed. Not bad because he has some questionable losses on the year. And he's 19-7. Understandable. But then you have Nick Hamilton, who's the runner-up, as a 25 seed. Mac Church, who worked his way back to 3rd as a 28 seed. And that's behind guys with, that's not a bad one for Mac. I think that the one that stands out the most is Hamilton. And I don't understand how somebody with 2 losses to people in the field and is a finalist in the conference gets a seed that low. That's the one that doesn't make sense to me. And that's what I keep going back to.
The only thing I can think of is that there's a lot of guys in this bracket with 2-1-0 losses, and then you'll have a guy like Cam Steed out there with 5 losses on the year, but he obviously had a really good tournament as well. So you have to figure that out. I do generally agree with Hamilton. The other tough part is he only had 14 matches on the season.
Yeah, and that's part of it too. But Gunnar Flipowitz, Army, wild card, correct? 20 seed.
Yeah,
more losses, worse losses.
Yeah,
and he's a higher seed. So those are the ones that always kind of stand out. Like it does. I don't understand, and it's all this matrix, this nebulous thing that nobody actually knows how it works. I'm sure it's some sort of algorithm, and then Valenti gets his crew together and talks about things as they come out, and they decide if they're right or not.
That's basically how it works. They punch all these,
but nobody gets to know what the matrix is except for Lawrence Fishburne.
Yeah, they punch all these things into a computer. The computer spits out where the seeds should be, essentially, and then human error comes into play. Not so much human error, but like the eye test, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the human factor, I guess I should say, comes into play when it comes to the matrix, right? So the matrix is only a suggestion, and whatever it suggests isn't always the end all be all, and whatever the final is what's agreed upon in the room. I wouldn't wish that job on anyone. The the fact that
Thankless. It's a thankless job.
it really is, and the fact that he sits in that room every single year. Props to him. I can't believe that he volunteered for that. But no, I mean the Matrix is a huge factor in all of these things because it takes the objectivity out of it, right? And it doesn't allow for the jockeying. It does allow for the jockeying. However, it does give a result, a numbers based result. And I'll never say that I completely understand everything that goes into the matrix. However, there are a number of factors, obviously, right? Coaches rank, RPI, their conference final,
Shoe
placement.
size.
Like there's a whole bunch of stuff that goes into it. And like I said, it spits out whatever it spits out, and then they gotta kind of navigate around. Okay, this guy should probably be here. This head to head happened here. This loss was avenged. And with that being said, when I looked at, first of all, I was surprised that Lilladall was the 1 seed right off the bat. Was very surprised that Lilladall was the 1 seed, and I will always be team body of work over team placement, because we are what we consistently do, right? And even though Lilladall did consistently win all year, he also does have 2 losses. And those losses are to Dean Peterson and McCrone. So like the fact that he got the 1 seed is solely based on how he looked at the Big Ten tournament. And obviously, yes, I get it. He beat the 1 seed and the number 1 ranked guy in the country, but it still shouldn't override your complete body of work from the whole season. So when I saw that, I was like, okay, they're going Big Ten placement essentially over what happened during the entire season, because there's no way that you get Lilladall as the 1 and he has those 2 losses to McCrone and he's got the other loss to Peterson.
Are you
I think it's
making
hard.
the argument for Ramos to be the 1 seed then?
Yes,
Body
I
of
think
work
that-
says, yeah.
correct.
I don't know, man. I think that's tough, and I'm a big Matt Ramos fan.
Why, he's got 1 loss.
Picking, yeah, and I'm picking him to win the NCAA tournament. I think if you're doing anything here, you're going, that was a decisive win.
Okay.
And
he also had a lot of decisive wins in the year until he had his 1 loss.
I'm a body of
also
work guy.
true. Also true. I'm just if you're splitting hairs here, like, okay, well, we can.
I also
1
believe
versus
that Bo
2,
Bartlett
right?
should be the number 1 seed at 141.
Oh,
I
no,
I don't think that Brock Hardy should have gotten the 1 seed at
I would agree.
141.
I think it's hard because it doesn't feel like there's consistency with between weight to weight and even guy to guy, whether it's measured on the body of work or whether it's measured on recency. And if it's, is it more important how they did at conference, or is it more important what they did the entire year and their quality wins throughout the year and number of losses throughout the year? Or is it only important what happens at conference?
If we're talking about consistency, though, it is consistent. I'm scrolling through it right now, like with how they made that decision, and the decision appears to have been made on this past weekend.
Certainly, that consistency is there. However, I think it's the wrong consistency.
Yeah, and that's what it comes down to, is that that makes it so you're putting all the weight onto one weekend of wrestling, and that we've all seen, and we've all probably had a weekend that was off. And should we be measured on one performance versus 6 months of performance?
Exactly. Because and not only that, but like Brock Hardy avenged 1 loss this weekend that he had. 1. That was it. And that was Bo Bartlett. I understand he was the 1 seed, number 1 ranked guy, but he also lost to Cale Happel and Jameson. So how does he get the 1 seed?
Mendez.
No, he also lost to Tegan Jameson.
No. I mean, I'm saying the loss he avenged was to Mendez.
Yes, sorry.
Yeah.
To Mendez. So how in the world does he get the one? That's my only thought is I don't think that he should get the one seed. I think he's got a very good chance of winning NCAAs based on how he wrestled at Big Tens, but I don't think he should have been the one seed if we're going with the body of work and who he lost to.
The thing with that weight is that everybody lost, right?
Yeah.
Like it was pretty set in stone what we all could have expected, which was some version of, Bo Bartlett at number one, and then, Mendez or Hardy or some combination, or Lirez at number 2 and 3. And then all those guys just lost, and it completely threw everything up in the air. And now you've got, a guy who was ranked 1, 2, or 3 pretty much all year as the 8 seed on the same side as the guy who's now the 1 seed, which theoretically should give you the easiest path. And it definitely doesn't do that.
Yeah. And I mean, I understand why Bartlett is not the one with the loss to Von Bauer, who's got that too. With the loss to
Bruno
Von
Mars. Is he taller or shorter than Bruno Mars?
Probably right around the same height.
Yeah. Can he sing well? Does anyone know that?
What?
Does he sing well?
That I don't know.
Sure, he can. I feel like
he's probably a man of many talents, I would assume.
I assume so. He smiles well.
So.
Kid stands and does a backflip twist. I mean,
he's pretty well rounded.
I can do that though. I mean,
but like,
come on.
Bartlett's loss to Von Bauer is what drags him down out of that top seed. However, I don't think it should have. I don't think that it should have. I think that he should have been the 1 seed still, because his body of work shows that he's still like that. One loss should not kill his 1 seed when his other wins include wins over the returning NCAA champion, Jesse Mendez. That should elevate you. Yes, wins. He beat him for 3rd and he beat him during the duel. So like he's got multiple wins over the returning NCAA champion. Yet this 1 loss at the conference is what drops him to 2. I know we're splitting hairs, but like it's when you look at body of work, you have to look at it can't just be based on 1 weekend. And I feel like that's what they were doing with a lot of these seeds. And when Brock Hardy gets the 1 at 23 and 3, and he's obviously bumped by beating last year's NCAA champion, which didn't seem to be good enough for Bo Bartlett, who also beat the returning NCAA champion, but beat him twice. It just doesn't make sense to me. And again, splitting hairs. It's 1 seed versus 2 seed. However, that 1 seed definitely doesn't have the easier path.
No, he does not. One other thing I noticed at Big Tens was just that Vance Von Bauer walks like a WWF wrestler, like walking down during his entrance music down the aisleway, just chest out, arms, just the most confident man alive. I'm a big fan of his. He thought he beat Bo before he wrestled Bo, so that was cool.
The name like Vance Von Bauer, you have to be though.
Yeah,
it's like a rich
he already has a name you would not have to change if he went into the WWA.
Yeah.
Double V.
There's already been one of those guys. I don't know if
Val Venus.
I don't know if they want to repeat that. Different plan. That was my thought. Just like looking at specifically those 2 seeds was just they weighed heavily on Big Ten conference finish and not on body of work. And while other seeds to me make total sense of, Gable being the 1 and Hendrickson being the 2 makes total sense to me. Ferrari being the 3, total sense to me. I think that's where all of them should be. However, there's just a couple of them where it's just like, I don't think that those are right. Like and again, we're splitting hairs. We're talking about 1 seed versus 2 seed, but it does change your path to the finals. And when you do have a returning NCAA champion in your path, which both of them do, Alira's in the top half, Mendez is in the bottom. So both of them do. So, both equally tough paths, but I was very surprised that Brock Hardy got the 1 seed off of 1 weekend.
They felt bad for that spoiler guy hit in, so they want to make it up.
The one thing I will say is that like sometimes the regular season dictates, the regular season paired with the conference results dictates some chaos, right? And we saw it last year at 174 when Carter Starachi had to go through Mekhi Lewis and Shane Griffith before even making it to the finals, right? We saw it at 165 when David Carr and Keegan O'Toole met in the semis. Like sometimes it's does it make sense like to the general public or like the groups of people who typically watch this and understand like maybe what probably should happen all the time? No, it doesn't always make sense, but sometimes the records do dictate that, and that's kind of what happens sometimes.
So with Starachi is because they were injury defaults. Like
Yeah.
I mean,
Sure.
so that one made more sense. And the argument can be made that they, maybe the other seeds weren't correct and it made it for a more difficult path. But I think his seed was appropriate based on if we're putting all that weight on the conference tournament, having 2 losses there does that.
But there's always going to be those circumstances that change it up a little bit. I'm just saying, like, the path doesn't always, the number 1 seed doesn't necessarily mean that you have the easiest route, depending on whatever chaos happened.
Yeah. But that's where the matrix is foul, in my opinion, of a Carter Sirachi being a 9 seed and being on that side of the bracket where he has to beat all of those guys instead of the human factor correcting it. That's why they don't just spit out the seeds and say, okay, AI was correct, right? The matrix was right. All the numbers that we put into the computer gave us this, and we're going to go with this. That's why they have a committee. It's why they get into those rooms, is to fix things like that or fix things like Ja'Cory Teamer being the 18 seed.
But that's also why we wrestled the matches, right? Vance Vonbauer was 26 seed last season.
Yeah.
And he was like, I'm not a number. My name's Vance. Still my favorite.
Double B.
Yeah, double V.
Yeah.
Different plot line.
How are we feeling about Ja'Cory Teamer being the 18 seed and most likely hitting Meyer Shapiro in the second round?
What has he done to earn anything higher than that?
Yeah,
I mean,
he's been hurt the whole year.
Results don't matter.
Yeah. But he had a super low match count. His winning percentage wasn't that good. He doesn't have great wins like that. I mean, I understand he's a returning All-American and has these past results, but if we're not basing that on previous years, 18 is, I mean, maybe you could argue for 15, but I think anything above that, you're really stretching it.
This is a reach, but bear with me. Mike Miller was an NCAA finalist for Central Michigan University, lost to Steve Luke at 174, ended up essentially bumping up to 84 the next year, got hurt, dropped down to 165 the year after that. Ended up not just battling some shoulder injuries and things like that, ended up not making the tournament as a wild card as a result. But it's like, sometimes if you have good results previously, injuries get in the way and it kind of screws up your chances. We're not personally attacking Ja'Cory Teamer. I think he's awesome and his career stands for itself. The guy's held together with duct tape right now, and it shows in the matches. And it does suck to see, as somebody who you respect and value their performances in the past, to see it unfold this way. But I think it's reasonable where he's at. I think it's tough for me to make an argument at a lot of the other guys seated above him for them to be switched
based on his body of work
this season.
Exactly. Thank you.
Also,
glad we finally agreed. Came around to it.
Year of eligibility.
Yeah,
I'd seat Nick Hamilton over him. I'll put it that way.
Especially at 57.
Yeah, especially yeah.
Pounds.
Get down there, Nick.
Yeah. No, and see that's what I'm saying is, like, if we're gonna and that's the thing is, Teamer is most likely down at 18 because, one, his conference finish as well, but he's 8-4 on the year, right? So like,
there's no RPI for him, so
exactly
it's losing points for that. Yeah.
So like his entire body
best win
of work
is what? Caleb Fish.
Maybe.
What
Yeah,
a
maybe.
finish.
Well, like his entire body of work
there,
plus conference placement puts him at 18. So that's what I mean in those other two spots. And again, I'll say it again, splitting hairs, but in the other two spots, body of work plus conference placement, I don't know how that equals the number 1 seed. So
I feel like I have to wear my Purdue hat next time just to prove that I.
yeah, maybe. Any others, or you guys ready to wrap things up and dig into these brackets, and so we can make our picks and give our finalists and stuff like that next week?
I mean, my other question, I'll throw it out to you guys too. It's probably hard to avoid Big Ten and possibly Big 12, but what do you guys think about matchups in the first round from people from the same conference?
Hate it.
It's frustrating.
Because there are 2 instances EIWA finals rematches first round.
Didn't that happen last year too, where there were a number of spots where EIWA guys hit in the first round?
I think last year, if I remember, it was like 7, 8, or 9 matchups. This year, there's 4 with
Here's the thing.
the teams. Yeah,
If we're talking about splitting hairs, right? If we're going to keep using that framework or that those words, like let's split them and separate them,
Yeah.
right? Like
There should be separation criteria between conferences.
1,000%.
and I had this conversation with Valenti last year, and I guess the committee's excuse is, well, do you move one guy up or move one guy down? And how's
I don't
that?
care.
Coin.
And yeah, I mean, they have their rules. I get it. You know, nothing against Valenti. He's, you know, like you guys said, he's great for volunteering to do this crap, but you know, it's like I think it would make better product seeing different people wrestle, because like 2 rematches from a week ago, I think that's kind of stupid.
Clearly, this sucks, right? Like this version of it sucks. Do you think either of those wrestlers are like, sweet, like this just happened, right?
If you major or tech fall the kid, yeah,
Sure.
Depends on what side of that you're on.
first round win most likely,
But that's the crazy thing though too, is like, you know, I'm thinking back, and this doesn't happen all the time. More often than not, if you major or tech fall a guy, you probably beat him up pretty bad the next time too. But then you'll randomly get those times where like you get a Sam Hazewinkle wrestling Paul Donahoe, teched him in the Big 12 finals that year, lost in the NCAA finals. Not first round of NCAAs, but I'm just saying, like, sometimes too much exposure is bad for someone.
You can't say that with Paul Donahoe.
Sometimes too much exposure is bad.
Imagine how well he would have done in the NLI era. That'd been great.
Oh man, he would have had some sponsorships.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do hate it though. There should be some separation between, especially finals rematches from conferences, right? Like there's got to be something. So, but what are you gonna do, right?
For all
it's
the
really,
younger wrestling fans who are listening, you should probably Google Paul.
No,
Donahoe.
don't do it. Not Google Images.
Don't worry, I'm editing that out. Actually, I'm gonna leave it in. Who cares? But no, there's certainly those instances where they should, and I understand why they can't do anything about it, right? Like his point is correct. Do we move him up and affect somebody else, or move him down and affect, you know what I mean? Like there's a domino effect there. So
well, like we've also talked about, there is a little bit of human element when these get spit out.
there is.
They're like, so why can't we do that with conference matchups in the first round? You know, why are we correcting some things to make them right, but not when it comes to, I don't know. Some people don't mind it. I just think it's like, hey, let them wrestle someone else, you know?
At the end of the day, everybody is sat there and told, out wrestle your seed, right? Who gives
You're
a shit
the bad
if it's
draw,
24
remember?
versus 25, right? Or you're 26 and 23. Like, just get it done. Like, I don't know. I don't know those people wouldn't wrestle first round. I understand that. I know that. But
The point still stands.
Yeah. Like, whatever.
Well,
You're the bad draw. It's all these, you know, whatever terminology you want to use to justify that you're going to be just fine. I don't know.
Hey, it is what it is. And I mean, unfortunately, we are still left, and we are going to be left, unless it happens in freestyle, without a Gabe Arnold versus Carter Sirachi match, because the wrestling gods do not want that to happen. So
I'm okay with it.
we'll be left without. I'm not.
Yeah.
I want to see it happen. I want I want this shit talking to be backed up is what I want. That's what I want.
One of those guys hasn't backed it up.
That's what I'm saying. I want these guys to be on the mat against each other so we can see it happen. I want to see it.
One guy's
That,
been there when he
that's
said
what
he's
I
going
want
to
to
be
see.
there.
I want to see it. So I'd love that. The other thing is Ferrari versus Glazier. That's going to be a fun rematch. Um,
Whoa, not if Andy Smith has anything to say about it.
Not if Andy Smith has anything to say about it. I'm sorry, Andy Smith, but give us what we want.
Andy Smith's going to have to wrestle with a lot more confidence than
Well,
he had last weekend if he's going to get
maybe
past Glazier.
maybe it's just Smith's. Jackson Smith didn't want us to have what we wanted.
Yeah,
It's true.
certainly did not. It is sad that the Stouts have to face each other, potentially face each other in the second round.
Yeah, that sucks.
Mickett O'Malley is gonna try and not make
Good old
that
Mickett.
so, but
Yeah, make it.
Mickett.
For people that are listening and watching, Mickett is what he was named in the final NCAA rankings that came out the other day.
Yeah.
They misspelled his name. His name is Mikey, Mickey O'Malley, but they called
He
him
has to
Mickett.
change it after St. Patrick's Day. It's going to be
Yeah.
Mickett after St. Patrick's Day.
Love it.
You
Love
get to
it.
celebrate, and then it's going away.
Get gone. All right, gentlemen, you guys got anything else? Any other shout outs? Anything else you want to put out into the ether before we wrap up?
Happy St. Patrick's Day, everybody. We'll probably be
Especially you,
past that by
Mickett.
then. Yeah,
Especially
exactly.
you. Yeah, especially you, Mickett.
I will give a quick shout out. I'm repping Drexel Wrestling today. Heavy
Oh yeah,
hearts.
dude.
Passing of my former coach, Jack Childs, one of the legendary guys in the sport. I think his services are going to be this weekend. I'm definitely going to go out there and, it's a sad event, but, you're going to see some people you haven't seen in a while and laugh at some stories. But yeah, Coach Childs was great. When my life would be so much different without that guy, obviously recruiting me, meeting my wife there, having all my buddies there, and just I have a complete different life without him. So, Coach Childs, rest in peace. We're gonna miss you, buddy, and um, it's just would have been nice to see him at NCAA's this one last time in Philly, where he kind of started his career, ended his career here. But you know, times time sucks sometimes. You don't get it. You don't get what you want. So, shout out to Drexel Wrestling and Coach Childs and his family.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. And with that, we close things out for another episode. We appreciate you guys listening and watching. Next week, we will pick our finalists and our national champions. See if we are kicking or sticking with the guys that we either switched to or picked from the start of the season. And maybe we'll do it with some beers in hand. Who knows? Or an alcoholic beverage to celebrate the end of the season. Either maybe next week or maybe the following week. We'll see. Or maybe both because we're all of age to do that. So put your picks or any of your egregious seeds or whatever else in the comments. We always love every single one of those comments. See you guys next week. And always appreciate you listening and watching.